So they're doing a documentary about me, and that was a weird thing, man, because they didn't. I mean, nobody had any idea that I was going to be going to the White House. It seemed a little far-fetched, as you can see, and so they, so they started doing this documentary about the movement, the work that we're trying to get done, and I can see. I can see clearly now. Anyway, and that work continues. But then, obviously, because of all the excitement of me going there and then leaving the way I did, it makes the documentary a lot more interesting. But rather than me giving a big speech or a big talk, I think it's small enough. And you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't have some sense about what I'm trying to get done. That maybe we should just start with questions. And just use the time to have a conversation. And so to make it fair, the first person who wants to ask a question, you can't ask. Because you're going to give a speech. I know you, whoever you are. You don't have a question. You've got a very clever insight that you came here to deliver. So you have now been disqualified. Now, the second person. I'll get to you on. Here's the rule. Ask it. I'm going to let 3 or 4 people ask questions before I answer. That way we can kind of get a sense of where the whole room is at, and then I'll take a run at it. And then if I didn't get your question well enough, you can kind of give me the thumbs down. I'll give it another shot. But is that cool? That way we can actually have more of a conversation. You guys get lectured at all the time. All right, so I think you're the second person. Yeah.
My question is you're the prime advocate of green jobs in the United States, and what about? I mean, green jobs there's all sorts of green jobs, but what about prioritizing green jobs? I mean, which types of green jobs should take priority over other types? I mean, okay. Is it that's the first part of the question, and then the second part of the question is, we want to increase the number of green jobs. What about your position on decreasing the number of brown jobs or dirty jobs, jobs that are the antithesis of green jobs?
I'm for that. So we can knock that one off. I'll get to the other one. So let's take 2, 3, 4 more questions. Just kind of get a sense of where people are at, and that way when I'm talking, I'm actually talking to. So there's somebody right down there in the front who's got a little shawl. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm curious to understand what you see as the means of helping work with ex-offender populations and understanding what kind of policies we need at a national scale around Department of Justice and Corrections to overcome that major hurdle.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, as an aside, I'm from Dresden, Tennessee, which is right next to Whiting, Tennessee.
But, beautiful. Now, is that in Weakley County?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. All right, I'm from Madison County, so good. Yes, we're neighbors.
But so all over West and Middle Tennessee, there are a bunch of solar plants that are growing jobs at a time when all the rest of the factory jobs are leaving.
Right.
And yet, when you talk to people about climate legislation and the steps we need to catalyze the green economy, all people think of is rising energy prices. So, like I say, is what needs to be done to combat the misconceptions of the disinformation about what a green economy will mean for people?
So that's a great question.
Maybe just as a tag on to the first question or second question, depending on how you're counting it. Where do you see natural resource-based jobs fitting into this? So agriculture, timber, and land management for conservation?
Hi. Forgive my ignorance, but why did you go to the White House, and what is the status of green jobs on their agenda? Thanks.
Okay. Let's just take 2 more. Just good. Because once I start talking, you know, it's going to be terrible. You'll be leaving out the back. Get a couple more.
Hi, I work at a local community foundation, and we were recently asked to come together as funders to talk about green jobs in our role. You won't be there, so if you had an opportunity to talk to local funders for nonprofits, what would you tell them about what they should do to bring about a greener economy? Thank you.
Cool. One more. Hey, Brother
Yes.
George.
Okay, Van.
How are you?
Oh,
Hey,
right.
now, George, first of all, don't bust me out.
Okay.
'Cause see, the man got up here and he lied and made me look good. Said I'd only been gone for 7 years. He misread his notes. 17 years. I graduated in 1993. And now here comes George, who I've known since those days, who's going to say, you know, Van has been gone for 20 years, not 7, and made me look terrible. So don't do that. Let them think I'm younger than I am and ask another question.
Okay, right. Thank you. You know, during World War II,
Yeah, I
the
remember.
hemp industry was legal.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The hemp industry in
Hemp.
America was legal. And then the repeal and then the institution of laws that criminalized hemp and marijuana. But it had a vast effect on the products, textiles, et cetera, from World War II. And now here we're back to the question of regreening the economy and the earth. And agriculturally, I think the hemp is very friendly. So I want to ask a question. Don't you think it's about time for we to regreen the earth and explode the hemp back on the planet?
Now, see, we're friends like this. Do you see why I had the experience that I had? Do you see? Now, look, I may look like a masochist and a crazy fool, but even for you, George, I'm not going to say nothing about no hemp. So we're going to just leave that. We're just going to leave that out. Stop the tape, rewind it. And I'm just going to start talking because the question is going to go downhill from here. And there's an agricultural question above that don't say nothing about no hemp. So we'll get to that one. Hey, George, it's good to see you, brother. I love you, man. Now, George and I go way, way, way back. So let me just take them in kind of at random. Ex-offender population, formerly incarcerated folks. You know, this is the core and the soul of the moral challenge to the green economy. See, we're going to have a green economy, or we're not going to have an economy, right? So in some ways, you know, victory is assured, because either we're going to, you know, we have this green soap bubble in space called the Earth that we live on. Past couple hundred years, we've been acting kind of crazy, industrial society, strip mining and baking the planet and poisoning it and polluting it, the old gray economy. We keep doing that, we won't be here. So if we are going to be here in 100 years, we will have a green economy. That will be one of the most significant achievements and accomplishments in all of human history. But it will be insufficient unless it is a green economy that Dr. King would be proud of. Right? Unless it's a green economy that includes everybody, that has a place in it for everybody. The big challenge that you have in the new century you're inheriting, and you younger people are going to have to lead through, is every single problem eventually is going to boil down to a question of how do you have 7, 8, 9 billion people on the same little tiny planet, not destroy the planet, and not have a bunch of wars all the time. That is a huge leadership challenge for you. And the opportunity that you have is to start off right, to start off with the right values and to say the problem fundamentally is the idea of disposability, that we believe we have throwaway resources, throwaway species, which we don't. And the environmentalists have done a tremendous job in helping us understand that we don't. But we also don't have any throwaway people either. We don't have throwaway neighborhoods either. We don't have throwaway nations either. It's all precious and it's all sacred. And as I mentioned in the film, there's something wrong with any movement that will go nuts to insist that dead material gets a second chance, but will be silent when the time comes to give living people a second chance coming out of prison. I would argue that from a moral point of view, we want to build a green economy that says, first of all, it's highly irrational to spend, in California, I think we're spending $120,000 per year per kid in jail and prison. I'm gonna say it again. $120,000 per year per kid locked up in California's prison. And you could send 2 or 3 kids to Yale for the cost of sending 1 kid to jail, right? Just to be clear about that. That's a lot of money. My suspicion is they're not getting anywhere near as good an education, but you never know. And if we use that money to build a green economy rather than a gulag economy, we would probably actually have less violence, less crime, safer communities, and we'd be well on our way. So I wanted to start with that. From a practical point of view, there are green reentry programs. If you Google the term green reentry, there are green reentry programs that are cropping up all across the country as people recognize that people are going to be leaving prisons. They got to be able to do something, and we have all this work that needs to be done. The moral challenge for the green economy is to take all this work that needs to be done, retrofitting America, repowering America, putting up millions of solar panels, tens of thousands of wind turbines, hundreds of wind farms, retrofitting every building so it leaks less energy, wastes less water. That's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. It's the most important work in the world to turn a leader in global pollution into a leader in global ecological solutions. That transition is the most important work that needs to be done in the world. And we have all these people who need work. So if we can connect the people who most need work to the work that most needs to be done, we'll be able to fight pollution and poverty at the same time, beat global warming and the global recession at the same time. Those kinds of solutions are available, but we need to start with the so-called the least of these. If we get it right for Pookie, for Snoopy, for Josue, for Lil Run Run, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. If we get it right, sister's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Pookie need a job. You right. Snoopy need a job. If we get it right for the young brothers and the young sisters who we have thrown in the trash can, then you know the rest of the economy is going to be all right. So let's start from the beginning to build in the equity, to build in the equal opportunity. And there's a young woman who wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, and her name is Michelle Alexander. And I encourage everybody to get this book. It really talks about how we have a new system. I'm talking about the prison stuff because I think it's important in an environmental forum to talk about it. In the 1800s, we had the enslavement as the #1 problem, kind of the barrier, the dehumanization machine that we had in our country. And then in the 1900s, we had Jim Crow. She makes the argument in the 2000s, this mass incarceration machine, that takes people, drug offenders, like probably half of this room, right? Drug offenders, like you, and your roommate, the true drug offender, who you can't wait to get away from this summer. takes drug offenders, hold on a second, takes drug offenders, quote unquote, and if they are 4 blocks from you here in New Haven, puts them in prison, calls them felons, brands them for the rest of their lives, where they have to go to the back of the line for jobs, can't vote a whole bunch of places, and have that stigma forever, but take your roommate and just run them through rehab and put them back into grad school, right? That system, the way it's operating, I think in the 1970s, early 1980s, we had like 500,000 or less people behind bars. Now we have more than 2 million, not because there's been some big increase in violent crime, but because we've decided to overly police and discriminatorily police these drug laws. Now, you have a responsibility. When you get out in the world and you're an employer or you're investing in companies, and on the form for all your employees, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Check yes, no, is right there. If you check yes, you throw those people in the trash can. Remember your roommate who did way more drugs than Snoopy because he had or she had way more money than Snoopy to do the drugs, but just never got that brand on his or her head. Right? And do justice. Give people a second chance in your green company. Insist that the green companies that you champion in this movement do justice and don't perpetuate injustice. Wanted to make that point. Now, the other things I'm going to speak to much more quickly. Which jobs should take priority? First of all, eventually every job should be a green job. So, so we're not going to be satisfied with some solar panel stuff. This movement is deeper than a solar panel, all right? In fact, if all you do is sub out the existing dirty energy for some clean energy, you really haven't done that much. Ooh, I hope I didn't offend anybody. But I'm going to say it again. If all you do is take the existing dirty energy and just replace it with some clean energy, you haven't really done anything. Here's what you'll have. You'll have solar-powered bulldozers, solar-powered buzzsaws, knocking stuff down. You'll have biofueled bombers fighting wars, not for oil, for the engines, but for lithium, for the batteries. Right? And you'll still have a war-torn, horrible human civilization running off the cliff. So eventually, the whole economy has to be green, not just the energy system. The whole economy has to respect creation. The whole economy has to be designed, right, so that we can be here for 7 generations or 700 generations. The whole economy. But where do we start? Your question. From my point of view, we have 3 big opportunities here, short term right now. Number 1, we have the industrial heartland with some of the most skilled workers in the history of the world. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, skilled industrial workers. They are not working. Many of them are sitting there idle. They can be put to work right away building things. If you're going to go from the economy we got right now to the next one, somebody's got to make a bunch of stuff, right? Just to keep it as simple as possible. Right now, how do we power our society? We take dead stuff. We take the bones of our ancestors. That's what coal is, right? The dead bones of our ancestors. We take the dead blood of our ancestors. That's what oil is. We take dead oil and coal out of the ground, and then we burn it without ceremony in our engines, in our power plants. And now the climate scientists are telling us we're about to get death from the skies. You have a society that is fueled by death. And if we are going to run society based on living things, the living sun, solar power, the wind power, the waves, tidal power, by the living soil, smart, advanced biofuels. If we're going to actually begin to run the society based on living things, somebody's got to make something. Somebody's got to make that wind turbine, that smart battery, that solar panel. And our industrial workers should be given the opportunity and the mandate to get started as a matter of national climate energy emergency. It's a stench in the nostrils of God. It is a crime against future generations to have skilled workers sitting idle when we have all of this work that needs to be done to begin to prepare for the next economy. So Congress needs to move aggressively to introduce what we call a renewable energy standard. It's also just like a renewable energy goal to say very clearly that by, say, 2030, we're going to be 25% powered by renewable energy. That would be the biggest jobs program instantly that you could possibly have. That should be a big priority. Number two, retrofitting all of our existing building stock. We have 100 million homes in America that could be retrofitted, upgraded, weatherized, so they waste less energy. Right now, we have a broken home energy performance market. For very, very poor folks, we have a weatherization program that tries to get to some of them. And if you're really, really rich, you can do some remodeling, or you can bring in an energy service corporation that will do the hospitals and the universities, whatever, and you have 100 million American homes in the middle that will never get the help that they need to get the insulation, to get the high-performance windows, to get the new boilers, to get the new furnaces, to get the insulation, to get all this stuff that would actually cut their energy bills by 30%, 40% or more with existing technology. Right now, we have a broken market. Nobody's got the money up front to pay for it, and the financing's all messed up. There's a proposal on the table right now called Homestar that will fix a bunch of that. That needs to move forward. That's all 50 states. People could actually be put to work right now saving people money. That's a different kind of environmental politics. We're not talking about environmental politics. We're asking people to spend more money, because that's what we've been doing. It's like, here's our environmental politics briefly, according to your cousin. Right? Hello, you suck. Right? Please spend more money on on tofu or something. Hello, you suck. Please spend more money on some eco-chic stuff. Where are you going? Come back. Please be my friend. I mean, for ordinary people who are working every day or want to work every day, the idea that they're supposed to spend more money to be a good person is really hard. What we've got to be able to do is tell people who have problems, who live in crisis, that we've got solutions for them. One of them is, we want to cut unemployment in your neighborhood. Oh, that's a good thing. We want to give Snoopy a job. Oh, that's a real good thing. Please give that guy a job. Right? And the job we want to give him will actually cut your energy bill. Right? So we're going to take the same dollar bill, use it to cut unemployment, right? Cut your energy bill, which will then make your coal-fired power plant down the street work less hard, which will cut pollution, right? Which will therefore cut asthma. Our movement's trying to take the asthma inhaler out your little girl's pocket, right? Give your neighbor a job and save you money. Now will you join our movement? Yes. Right? You don't have to chase people down the street with a clipboard. Right? To be a part of that movement. Right? And so the second piece is the Homestar piece. And the third piece is, it's not just our industrial workers who are suffering. It's not just folks who live in inner city and urban America who are suffering. Our agricultural heartland and our Native American populations are also suffering. And so if the green economy can not only help the industrial heartland to recover and help people across the country and from all income levels save money, it can also begin to revive our agricultural and rural heartland. And part of the $80 billion in the recovery package, which I had a role in overseeing, which nobody talked about, was money to USDA, was money to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. to do exactly the kind of things you're talking about. Regreening America. I forget how many billions of dollars we had for conservation efforts. But the thing that's so horrible, which comes back to your point, my friend from Tennessee, smart, sane climate policy should be the #1 demand of red state America. Smart, sane climate policy should be, the Republican Party and red state America should be marching through the streets of DC demanding smart, sane climate policy. Why? If you're a rural farmer right now, you're scared, you're struggling, you don't have enough income, if we had the right energy and climate policy, we could deliver 3 paychecks to you on a market basis within a year. #1, you're rural. You live in rural America. You own some land. You could put wind turbines on that land and get between $5,000 to $15,000 a year just watching them turn. Now, I'd sign up for that. But there's got to be some built-in demand, and the policies have to be right, so you know that you're actually going to be able to connect that to the grid. There's a whole bunch of work that has to be done, but the land that's sitting there, you can still keep growing whatever you're growing. So, soybean, alfalfa, whatever you're growing. Just stick 3 wind turbines there, and you'll get $5,000 to $15,000 per one to watch them turn. One paycheck. #2, if you want to, you should be able to grow an energy crop. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that we are all mad about, but there's some advanced energy crops that are coming or could be here, or algae, that, again, in a sane, smart climate energy system, should also bring you money. That's the second set of paychecks. Third, if you do that work, the agricultural work, the smart way, with advanced agricultural techniques where you're capturing carbon, sequestering carbon, you should also be able to play in the carbon markets, join a co-op, play in the carbon markets, and get paid that way. So in other words, the people who are stopping climate policy are stopping 3 different paychecks from going to their own constituents. Now, we've got to point that out. We've got to do a much better job of pointing that out. Now, I haven't even gotten to all the stuff you're talking about in terms of the new production of clean energy technology that's going on in the South that nobody's talking about. But the agricultural heartland in America could begin to revive based on smart, green, and clean policies. We need to do a better job explaining that. So I guess Western Sea, timber. Why did I go to the White House? That's a good question. Who asked that question? What's your name? Kat? That's a good. Why did I go to the White House? What was he thinking? Well, I spent a long time in politics being mad at the government, mad at the president, and demanding that certain things change and go in a different direction. And we got an administration that actually agreed with an awful lot of the stuff that people in this room have been saying and that I have been saying. And sometimes you got to take yes for an answer. Sometimes you got to take yes for an answer. And given the opportunity to either continue to stand on the outside saying what they ought to do. You ever had that conversation? This is what they ought to do. Now see, this is what they ought to do. Right? I had that conversation for a while. And I felt like there was an opportunity to actually be a part of delivering on what both candidates, both McCain and Obama, had made strong commitments to moving in the right direction on energy and climate. Let's not forget that. There was a bipartisan consensus in the debate. Notice, go on YouTube right now and find John McCain and Senator Obama fighting about climate and energy policy. I'll wait. You won't find it, because that was the one point they agreed on, 100% agree on. And it was clear that you had majorities in Congress and an administration that was ready to move in that direction. And so I decided I wanted to go and be a part of helping. And it was an extraordinary experience. People talk about the fact that I left the White House. So, Van, you were in the White House, and now you're not in the White House. And I'm like, could you just stop right there? Rewind the tape to the first part of your sentence. I was in the White House. I got a chance to see close up, firsthand, the challenges this country faces. And if you get a chance to serve for 23 minutes, do it. I'm serious. If you get a chance to serve for 23 minutes, do it. Because it's the difference between being in an airplane where there's turbulence and sitting with the passengers versus being in the cockpit. And really getting a chance to see how every single day America is a miracle. This country is a miracle. If you knew how many challenges come across the radar screen, not every day, every hour, to have to be responded to, not by robots, but by real people in real time who've got kids at home, who've got, every problem in the world, and to see over and over and over again the way, not stuff that gets in the newspapers and all, everybody, the big debate stuff. I mean the daily challenges of keeping our country safe, keeping our country moving forward, dealing with the short-term and the long-term challenges. If you just to get a chance to see that up close, if you think you love your country now, it's like, you think you love kids before you have one, and then you really, 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 really get it. That was my experience, and so I wouldn't trade it for the world. Local funders, man. First of all, who needs some money in here? Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. All right, get him afterwards. Here's the way I would think about it. You don't want to waste your money. There's a lot of talk about green jobs. It's sort of like, it's still a certain kind of a catchphrase. But there's only going to be so many employers and so many government programs that actually deliver. And I think the most important thing to do is, obviously hug the advocates. And advocates sometimes need bridge funding. But help them to identify the employers and make sure they're at the table. Because what the employers need and what the advocates say are often worlds apart. And the big challenge I think that we're going to have in the next phase, because we're done with about 2/3 of the green dollars spent out on the recovery package, except for some of the weatherization dollars are still there, is that as that money finally hits states and cities, and as the new legislation goes forward, you're going to actually have business models starting to break. For instance, in weatherization, the average home performance company is like, 3 guys in a truck, and they've been doing that for a long time. And maybe they do some HVAC on the side, but that's their business model. If we want to retrofit 100 million American homes, those little companies are going to have to grow pretty fast, and they don't know how. And so we might be over here as advocates screaming about one set of issues, but the actual employers are likely to have a very different set. And you, as a funder, the most powerful movers right now are the mayor's office and the funders on this stuff. You got the advocates, you got the people who want jobs, you got the labor unions, you got the employers, but the funders and the mayors have convening power. So I would, number one, make sure the employers are at the table, and number two, use your convening power to make sure that you're funding the advocates to solve the right problems, and that you're funding the job training programs that are actually going to result in jobs. So, did I leave out anybody's question? Okay, got a question right here. It's a great question. She was asking whether we're talking about blue-collar green jobs or white-collar green jobs, and the answer is yes. Right? We're talking about both. The great thing about when you're trying to transform a whole economy is that somebody can start as somebody installing solar panels, say for instance, and that's their job. But these industries are going to be growing. And so maybe in a year, they could go from being a worker on the crew to being a crew leader. And then they go from that to being a manager. And then maybe they could go out and become an owner, an inventor, an investor. You're talking about green pathways to prosperity that, unlike other parts of the economy, it should not be hard to make those leaps. In the healthcare industry, it's hard, right? It's hard to go from bedpans to brain surgeon, right? That is very difficult. Can be done, I'm sure it has been done, but it's hard. When you're talking about this kind of stuff, repowering and retrofitting a whole country, there should be green pathways. So some people say we should stop talking about green jobs and start talking about green careers. That's probably the better way to think about it. We want people to be able to be a part of the greening of this country for a long time. Yes. She asked a question about unions. Some are better than others. The laborers union, LIUNA, has been very forward-leaning in terms of trying to figure out how to unionize the weatherization workforce, how to grow and unionize it and diversify it. So they've shown a lot of leadership, at least at the level of intention. We still have a long way to go to kind of actually sort it out and figure it out. And then the steel workers have been leaning forward very hard on the question around wind energy, because they recognize that if we have a strong policy with regard to wind energy, there's as much steel in a wind turbine as in 26 cars, right? So so some parts of the labor movement have been really good.
Would you ask the education department to talk about environment in the school system? And would you want more environmental friendly schools throughout?
Yes, and luckily so does Arnie Duncan, who's the Secretary of Education. There's a big Green Schools initiative that is already happening from the grassroots level, but the federal government's also supportive as well. I see a couple hands. How much more time do we have? Does anybody know how much time we have? Do you know? Okay, good. So why don't you go ahead next?
What are your plans after this White House, after this film, after for all this past election? What are your plans going forward to push your vision forward?
The question is, what am I going to do? Well, that's a really good question. I mean, for me, the good thing is that the movement has completely exploded. I mean, it's nuts. How many people were a part of the Green Jobs movement, 3 years ago? But say in 2005, when we did the Green Cities thing with the United Nations, I mean, we were considered way nutty. I mean, way nutty. Even by the UN, they were like, you say you want what? Green jobs. And they're like, you say you want what? This is like 2005, just like 5 years ago. And to go from that phase, where we were still just basically evangelizing the basic concept, getting the first projects going, 2007, we got the first legislation passed. By the way, who signed into law the first Green Jobs Act? George W. Bush. Right? So part of the 2007 energy bill that Pelosi pushed forward and Bush signed. Right? So it was bipartisan. Right? Good for red states, good for blue states. Just keep track of this stuff. When people start politicizing stuff and pretending it's something it's not, look at the actual history. And then we from after 2007, it was kind of a big uptake from there. My challenge now is I get to do a bunch of stuff. I get to advise a bunch of companies that are great. Some companies are going to become household names. I get a chance to be there on the ground floor and help them. I also get a chance to advise, state, local governments, and I have a role with the national a think tank that has some influence with regard to the federal government as well. I like to write and I like ideas, so I get a chance to teach at Princeton. So I feel like I'm confronted with insurmountable opportunities. It's like insurmountable opportunities in my field, and I haven't decided what the next fun thing to do is. In terms of singularly. But what I am excited about is there are so many other new voices and leaders coming up in the movement, including Phaedra Ellis, who now runs Green for All, who's extraordinary. That I feel like it's going to be more kind of like the Super Friends. Lots of people doing lots of cool stuff together. So maybe one more question. Wow. Okay, 2 more questions. You, because you have such nice triceps, and you, because you're wearing plaid. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. First of all, thanks for being here. I actually had the wonderful opportunity to serve this administration as well.
Mm-hmm.
I did some of the analytics with a bunch of other people, obviously, on the recovery through retrofit.
Sure.
And I was interested in that 2 sentences you said in the beginning of the documentary, make sure to count what counts. Seeing on the back end the types of analytics that go through justifying the recovery through retrofit, just simply that small portion of it that deals with residential housing that you touched upon. I'm wondering from you what you believe going forward. How do we go about counting what counts? What are the important statistics? And you've got this new figure that's really new to this whole scene of what you save. That's really not a hard stat. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if you invest a certain amount of money and you're then recouping to a point where you've made back that money and then you're saving it forward, how do you sort of convey that as something meaningful as opposed to a soft savings?
Gotcha. And our friend in plaid.
Good shirt choice. I guess a way to characterize your agenda would be providing public goods in the private sector. And I'm wondering why the Tea Party is a populist movement right now instead of your agenda, which it seems has a much broader appeal.
Well, a couple things. One is to your point, we don't count what counts with our existing rules, regulations, and policies. And by that I mean, often there are things that we do that just don't make any sense if you look at it from a long-term perspective, but from a short-term perspective, they do. And one of the challenges I think that we've got, one of the opportunities I think that we've got, is to, especially concretely in the home performance market, is to create new financial tools and new financial services that actually take into account the long-term savings, and actually to operationalize that and to drive private capital there. And that's actually happening. If you look at this thing called PACE, which you know all about, but nobody else here does, we're actually now bringing forward policy tools and financial tools so that it actually matters to bankers. This is the easiest way to say it. It actually matters to bankers that you're going to save money on your energy bill. The fact that when you weatherize and retrofit your home and will therefore have more money in your pocket right now matters to no one, including people who are trying to make you loans for your house. So that is it's a much longer conversation, but I don't think it's going to stay abstract. It's becoming much more concrete. People want to figure out how to finance this stuff, and people see that there are cost savings to capture, and so that part is moving forward. To your point about populism and kind of where the pendulum is right now with regard to populism. For lack of a better term, there's a kind of an outrage, a politics of a certain kind of outrage that gets a lot of attention. I think that there's actually a bigger movement trying to solve the problems. It's just not as loud at this point. And one of the things that I think you're going to see as things move forward is actual solutions that help people in red states and blue states that can help people who are Republicans or Democrats. Those things take longer to show results, but as they show results, they begin to leach away some of the basis of the outrage. And so we're playing a long game here. We're not playing a short-term game. We're playing a long game here. If you look at last year, you had the politics of hope took a year off. I don't know if you noticed that. How hard did you work in 2008 to elect the president? Right. How hard did you work in 2009 to support the president? That's one way to ask the question. In 2008, how many emails did you get from your friends in 2008 trying to get you to take action, do stuff, come to this, give money to elect the president? In 2009, how many emails did you get asking people to actually support the president? How many meetings did you go to in 2008? How many doors did you knock on in 2008? How much work did you put in 2008 to elect the president versus last year, 2009, to support the president? The politics of hope crashed. That's what happened. You always had a certain politics of outrage, a certain from a certain end of the political spectrum. That's constant. Right? You had that with the Clinton administration. That hasn't changed at all. What happened was not these other people started doing stuff, is that we stopped doing stuff. And if you take that seriously, then you don't worry so much about what the other folks might be doing or saying. You worry about what are we not doing and not saying. And if we had literally last year 1/10 of the intensity to support the president that we had in 2008 to elect the president, you would never even heard of half of the people you now have to hear of all the time. And so as we go forward, I think we need to keep that in mind. And it's in our hands to revive the politics of hope and change. I'll close with this. Hope is very, very rare, hard thing to discover, to nurture, and to have. And change is 1,000 times harder to deliver on. And so we got to be marathoners here. I said the last little talk, I'll say it again. The best way I can explain this is when you're campaigning, you're trying to go from despair to hope. When you're governing, you're trying to go from hope to change. Okay? The best example I can give you is myself. Not that part of myself. The fact that I am now fully 10 pounds, possibly 15 pounds overweight. And it's disgusting. I know, you don't have to laugh at me. Yes, it's disgusting, I agree. Doing the best that I can. But not really. Right? But not really. I'm going somewhere. Look, I'm 10, almost 15 pounds overweight, but the reality is, I ate a bunch of chicken McNuggets today. I did. I ate a bunch of chicken McNuggets. It added to the factory farming problem. It also added to my weight. That's called despair, right? That's despair. When I was in the airport, though, I saw the fitness magazines. And there's the flat, washboardy tummy guy, with like the, and I thought to myself, I could look like that guy. That's called hope. Actually losing 15 pounds and looking anything remotely like that guy, that's called change, okay? That's up and down, back and forth, good days and bad days, sometimes the chicken McNuggets, right? So don't worry about the chicken McNugget people, that's all I'm saying. We got some chicken McNugget people, listen, right? We'll have some chicken McNugget days. I had some last year, politically. But fundamentally, the country has turned a corner. And that's why you get a little bit more intensity of organization from the outrage side. But we've turned a corner. There is no comparison between where we are now and where we were 2 years ago on any of these questions. We have $80 billion in recovery package for green stuff. When I started Green for All, last thing I'll say, I started Green for All 2007 at the Clinton Global Initiative with President Clinton, and I said, we are going to move $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, right, into green dollars into poor communities in total over a 4-year period, and was laughed at in 2007 because the idea, I said, state, local, philanthropic, whatever, I tried to add it all together. I think we can get $1 billion. In 2007, that was a joke. By March 2009, in the recovery package, $80 billion, and with a B, man, $80 billion, okay? There's no comparison between where we were then and where we are now. And that's not going back. That's not going to get rolled back. You know why? Because you've got elected officials in red states and blue states, mayors trying to solve real problems, not just doing ideological stuff, who know that that's the future for their communities. That's locked in. And so what we've got to do, though, is accelerate it, get there faster, get there bigger, and get there with more people included. That's our challenge. Thank you.